Well, he's officially still on the payroll. Okay, if we get started, this is the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. I'm having a glasses problem. The last Budget and Finance Committee meeting for this term. Get ready to get started here. The first item on the agenda is RS 2015-1603, sponsors Pride Moore, approves the issuance of taxable public improvement revenue bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $15 million to finance improvements to Nissan Stadium. Do I have a motion? And duly seconded. Any discussion before we get started? We have Mr. Steve Underwood here, the president of the Tennessee Titans, president CEO. So if we have any questions that he might be able to answer, and also other members of the Sports Authority present. So we have Councilman Glover. Welcome back, Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. It's good to be back. Just a quick question. I know some folks have talked with me about this, and I don't know if I need to direct it to you or to the Sports Authority, but are the taxpayers at any risk here, or is this strictly coming from revenues from the Titan Stadium? And if you could just kind of give me an overview there.
It's all ticket tax revenue.
Okay, it is all ticket tax.
There's no Metro tax dollars pledged at all.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask one question, John, for clarification. I spent some time talking to Toby Compton about this, and what percentage of our ticket tax is right now being used? How much will be left? And additionally, how much of what is left will be used for this purpose? And that's more for people that are viewing, because I got it, but I think it's worthy of discussion.
You may remember a few years ago when the council approved the financing for the new scoreboard and elevators and other improvements at the stadium. The ticket tax at that time was $2. The council approved a dollar increase to $3 with that extra dollar to be used basically, I guess, held in reserve to be used for future capital needs. And so that extra dollar is what is being used to cover the debt on these improvements.
And in the event that ticket sales go down, which we're hoping they're not, because I'm a ticket holder, but one of the things that my concern was is where does the additional money come from, just in case?
Well, I
and
think
my understanding, we have like $1 million.
Sports Authority revenue is pledged. Is that right, Rich?
Stand by.
Right. Again, as Mr. Councilman Cooper, excuse me, Mr. Cooper just said, he's been here enough that maybe he violated the term limits a long time ago, but we'll pass that. As Council said, there's no Metro pledge of any Metro funds behind this financing. It simply would be from available stadium revenues, which essentially are the ticket taxes and some revenues from CMA events that flow back to the Sports Authority. And so those are the revenues that have to be used to secure this debt. And the banks that we're talking to understand that that's all that's available. And they'll get comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Tigard.
Thank you. A question for Mr. Underwood concerning the Titans lease expiring in 2028. I guess my first question to John is, how long are these bonds for? And with the lease expiring in 13, 14 years, will the money pay for it by then?
The resolution provides that the bond term cannot extend beyond the lease term. So it will be at the latest 2028.
Okay. And Steve, thanks for being here. In the business world of the NFL, at what point do ownership and cities get together to discuss extensions and continuing relationships?
Well, let me mention this first,
okay.
Councilperson. There is an additional 10-year option after the lease primary term expires in 2028, which our organization intends to exercise probably somewhere in the 2025, 2026 timeframe, 10 years or so from now. When we originally prepared and negotiated the lease agreement, we divided it into those two parts so that we could see what kind of infrastructure and stadium refurbishment needed to be done at the end of the primary term of 30 years. But we foresee extending the lease well beyond its primary term.
And then what happens after that 10 years? You start from scratch again?
That would be 2038.
Right.
It's a little past my tenure.
I'm just looking at the history of the league and cities, what normally happens at that time.
Well, ideally what you hope for is that you begin looking for what to do about the needs of a stadium maybe 10 years out, something like that, about the time this lease expires. Our arrangements with the metropolitan government and with the Sports Authority have always taken a high road. We've never played any games about the lease, never discussed the possibility of doing anything other than staying here, and that's the road that our current ownership is also on. But we'll need to look at what needs to be done with the stadium maybe 10, 12 years from now, something like that.
Gotcha.
And begin a dialogue at that time, understanding that, we want to use the same kind of funding mechanisms that we used in the past to the extent that the stadium needs to be, completely revamped. That's a long way off. Stadiums and buildings change over time, and the market for stadiums has seen a huge evolution even during my tenure. But we don't see that as a long-term problem here. Our ticket sales have remained strong. Our suite sales are strong. We think of nowhere but Nashville as home.
Okay. And finally, I just wanted to commend you. I know that the Titans as an organization self-reported the discrepancy on the ticket tax revenue, which, shouldn't have happened, but it did, and it's water over the dam, no reason to point fingers. And I want to commend you and Mr. Riebling for resolving that issue, and then give you that. And I guess Mr. Compton may have had a small part in it, but I wanted to just get you to publicly state that the checks and balances are now in place, that situations like that cannot arise again.
Yes, and we are very sorry about what happened in our ticket office. It's been something that's been an embarrassment to us. It's the first time anything like that's ever happened in our organization's history. Fortunately, we did find it ourselves. We did correct it ourselves. We have put in place completely new controls in our ticket office. That will never happen again, as far as I'm concerned. We're also having independent audits going forward of our ticket tax user fee every year. So the odds of that happening again are de minimis. Incidentally, may I also join in thanking both Mr. Riebling and Mr. Compton. Their work is invaluable to us, and they're indispensable to our relationship with the metropolitan government.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Councilor Langston.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Underwood, for appearing.
Yes, ma'am.
For public information as well as for all PSL holders, is there any anticipation of a ticket price increase?
Well, there certainly won't be for this year. All of our tickets for this year are already priced, and all of that will depend on where we are at the end of the year. We never make those decisions until at least January following a season. We haven't had a ticket price increase, as you know, in several years. I wouldn't rule it out, but at the same time, we have to see what the market is like 5 months from now. Hopefully we're going to have a great deal of improvement this year, but that doesn't necessarily signal a ticket price increase.
Do you recall the last ticket price, what year that was?
I think it was actually after my original tenure ended in 2012.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. You're more than welcome.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you. This may be for Mr. Underwood. I'm just trying to make the numbers work because I'm a numbers person. In the analysis, it said that about $900,000 a year is generated by the ticket tax. Is that correct? And then apparently there's some other funds as well. And if we have a $28 million debt already that we've begun to pay off and we're adding a $15 million, that's 43 total. How do we pay that off by 2020?
It's 920,000 or so per dollar.
Yeah, that's
Per dollar?
Per dollar.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed the way it was written, it could have led to some confusion. So you have that 920,000 that's free and clear, and then you have some CMA revenues, which are really another $400,000 or $500,000. So that's how you amortize it over that 10 to 12-year period.
So it's actually 2.7 million because it's $3 tax. Okay, that makes much more sense.
The
Thank you.
analysis was, it's not written very well, that's my fault, but it's referring to the extra dollar that's being
Okay.
used to cover the debt.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you. I have a question, just looking ahead. When we did the legislation that Mr. Cooper explained, increasing the ticket tax and leaving this extra dollar for the kind of occurrence that we're dealing with now, at the time that we did that, it was stated that some of the improvements that we were paying for with some of that increase, for instance, the elevator and some of the other things, that they were actually not going to last. The life of some of those things were not going to last for the term of the bonds that were going to be used to pay for them. And if I remember, I think I'm the only person in the chamber that voted against that because I didn't think it was prudent to be buying something that was not going to expire before it was actually paid for. So at a point in time when those improvements or replacements are required, where's that money going to come from? Is that going to be an increase in the ticket price to generate that additional fee? Is that going to be an appropriation from the general fund? Where's that money going to come from? I'm not going to be here, and some of the people that are voting on this are not going to be here. But that's something that's down the road. How's it going to be handled?
Councilman, when the original transaction was completed between the Titans and the city back in 98, 99?
The agreement was signed in 96.
96. It's clear in the agreement that it is the city's obligation to maintain the stadium at a certain level in comparison with other stadiums in the NFL. So it'll be the city's obligation to do so. And at that time, when those requirements come up, we have an ongoing dialogue with the Titans. We'll work on that. But it'll be the city's commitment down the road, just like it is today. I mean, the ticket tax was frankly something that was requested, negotiated in the lease with the Titans. They didn't have to agree to it, but it was negotiated in the lease. And so we've been able to use that money to pay for most of the improvements outside of the annual $1 million that the city pays, again, under the lease agreement. And so at some point, there's going to, the city will either have to step up and pay for it. In 27 or 28, the existing bonds get paid off on the stadium, so that creates, again, new revenue streams. So it's going to be an ongoing issue over the next 10 years and then forever, really, as to how these improvements are going to be made. But ultimately, as negotiated originally, and none of us, well, some of us were here, not all. A few of us on the front row were here when that was done, maybe, perhaps. But that was the agreement that the city made with the Titans, and thus far, both parties have lived up to their obligations.
Right. Well, I went back and looked at notes that I had made on the paperwork that we were given at the time that all of that was happening, and so it was stated in there that the seat replacement was going to have to take place. I think it was projected to be 7 to 8 years out. So I agree that if they're going to have to do the concrete work and remove seats, that this is the appropriate time to do that. But I'm just wondering in the future if we've got stuff that's going to wear out before it's paid for, how we're going to be double,
I can carefully say that I understand your concerns with the prior financing and what's done is done, but these issues, the money that, the items that this particular financing is going to be used for will last longer than the debt.
right.
Because they're structural issues in seats which last 10 to 15 years.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just mark me abstention on this because everybody's thanking everybody so well with all this. But tomorrow night, John, I'm sure you and Rich and others, this would be a good one to explain to the public what's going on. And so tomorrow night, I'm going to abstain so that it will not be on the consent calendar.
Okay, seeing no others in the queue, thank you, Mr. Underwood.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1604, Pride Moore sponsor, approves an amended and restated resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of water and sewer revenue bonds, anticipation notes in the amount not to exceed $200 million in the form of commercial paper. And duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1605, Councilman Tiger's sponsor, appropriates $250,000 from the General Fund Reserve Fund to the Davidson County Sheriff's Office to purchase a shredder truck. Duly seconded. Councilman Tiger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe there's a substitute that I need to move.
Substitute. All right, second, go ahead.
All right. Council members will remember that during the budget hearings, I asked Sheriff Hall about his willingness to sponsor and man and provide a shredding truck to be used at community district cleanup days throughout this county. And Sheriff Hall was very receptive to that idea. And quite frankly, I've been waiting to the appropriate time, and tomorrow seems like the appropriate time to do that. What the substitute does is basically over the course of time, and maybe someone from the Sheriff's Department wants to explain this, there has been some leftover money, bond money, or 4% money, excuse me, that has not been used based on boilers and other roof repairs, et cetera, that will cover this expenditure. So I'm asking the council to support this as sort of one of the final acts in this term, that as district council members go out in their communities over the next 4 or 8 years and sponsor collection days for garbage and hazardous waste and electronics, that one of the more popular services is shredding, especially among our seniors. So I'm thankful that Sheriff Hall and his staff and his finance folks have discovered that this is appropriate and they're willing to do that, and that the fact that we are not using any more new money from the 4% fund, but simply, as the substitute states, reallocating existing appropriated funds.
Councilman Stein.
So the substitute now is simply a memorializing resolution asking the sheriff to spend his money on this. Okay, I'm going to vote for it because it's memorializing, but since I'm not an expert on the sheriff's budget, I certainly hope if there are more important things in the operation of the jail that he will use his appropriate judgment to spend it that way, but there's no reason not to vote for this thing, I guess.
Thank you, Councilman Stein. Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you. I'll make this brief. Having used the shredder for the last 8 years for Bellevue community events, and knowing the disheartened looks on so many people's faces when we don't have a shredder that's available, either due to lack of funds or lack of availability of a truck, it is, I think, extraordinarily fitting that we support this memorializing resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others in the queue, we have Councilman Garrett abstaining. We have, the motion is for the substitute bill to make it a resolution, a memorializing resolution. All in favor of the substitute bill? Aye. All opposed? Substitute passes.
Now we need a motion as substituted.
Now we need a motion for the bill as substituted.
So moved.
And second. All in favor? Aye. And one abstention. Motion passes. RS 2015-1606, Pridemore and Lancaster are the sponsors, approves a grant contract between Metro Government and the United Way of Continuous of the Nashville Financial Empowerment Center. Have a motion? Duly seconded. Mr. Director Eric Cole is here if we have any questions. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1607, Pridemore is the sponsor, approves a grant agreement between Metro Government and Fifth Third Bank for sponsorship of Arttober Nashville through the Metro Arts Commission. Have a motion? Do I have a motion? And duly second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1608, Pridemore and Baker, the sponsor, approves an annual state grant of $154,600 to the Davidson County Sheriff's Office for litter and trash pickup along roads and highways and litter prevention education. Duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1609, Pridemore and Baker are the sponsors, approves the annual agreement for services performed by Metro Government for the Emergency Communication District relative to operation of the enhanced 911 service for the fiscal year 2016. And duly seconded. For discussion, Director Dwayne Phillips, who, by the way, is retiring next month, is here to answer any questions. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, Director Phillips, on a job well done through these years. RS 2015-1611, Pridemore and Wiener sponsor, approves an amendment to a contract with Concentra Health Services Incorporation for operation of the Metro Injured on Duty Medical Clinic. Motion duly second. Any discussion? Council Lady Wiener.
I have a daughter who's a nurse. I am quite interested in the increase in pay for the nurse manager. What are her duties? And what are the criterion for getting that job?
Well, okay.
Hi, my name's Stephen Kane. I work with the Department of Human Resources, and I'm the Safety Administrator for Metro. The nurse manager is over the day-to-day activities at the clinic. She oversees the radiology technician. She assists the physician. She runs all the office requirements, responsibilities, and she also oversees utilization reports, billing, things of that nature. So she's primarily over the entire clinic, everything that happens there.
How did we come up with that salary? Is that consistent?
That's with Concentra.
With private?
Yeah, with the private industry. That's exactly right. We originally had a cost in the initial contract with Concentra when this was created, and then it took a year for the build-out to occur. So by the time we got around to opening it, the Concentra nurses at that same level had already increased such that they were having trouble trying to find someone to come over for a lesser cost. So that's with Concentra.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no others in the queue, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1612, Pridemore and Lancaster, the sponsors, approves a state grant of $44,795 to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to provide reemployment services and eligibility assessment services to unemployment and insurance claimants. Duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1613, Pridemore sponsor, approves a state grant of $154,714 to the Nashville Career Advancement Center for the Adult Employment Services. Duly motion made and duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1614, Pridemore and Lancaster is sponsor, approves a state grant of $305,516 to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to provide career services, training, and support services to dislocated workers. Duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1615, Pridemore, Hunt, and Bennett as sponsors, authorizes the Director of Public Property Administration to exercise an option to purchase two parcels of property located on Buena Vista Pike and Crouch Drive for the use as part of the park system. Duly seconded. Any discussion? Council Lady Bennett, any discussion, comments? All right. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1616, Pridemore and Hunter sponsor, authorizes the Director of Public Property Administration to accept a donation of 3 parcels of property located on the Walker Trail from the Madison Civitan Club for the use as part of the park system. Duly moved and duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Director Lynch. Been a long time coming. RS 2015-1617, Pridemore Bennett Lancaster, the sponsor, approves an application for a grant of $8,000 from Tennessee Arts Commission to the Metro Board of Parks and Recreation for the Literacy Takes Center Stage program. Yep. And duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1618, Pridemore Bennett sponsor, approves an application for a grant of $6,657 from Tennessee State Library and Archives to the Nashville Public Library to purchase equipment. Motion made and duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1619, Council Lady Weiner, Pridemore, and others as sponsor, approves an intergovernmental agreement between the State Department of Transportation and Metro Public Works Department for the acceptance of a traffic signal in connection with a state project on Old Hickory Boulevard. Duly motion made, duly seconded. Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I need to know which traffic signal they're talking about.
Someone from Public Works, Billy? Okay. Mr. Davis is here.
I would have asked you sooner, but I didn't see you.
This is the improvement at the off-ramp. As it, you have Sonia Drive that sits in an angle. These are improvements that TDOT's making at the off-ramp.
So this is the new traffic light?
And some restriping that's in there. It's about $90,000 worth of work.
Okay, but specifically, this is the new traffic light that's at Sonia Drive?
Yes, but it's at the off-ramp. It's things they're doing in the interchange limits.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1621, Pridemore and Hunter sponsors, approves a joint funding agreement between Metro and the United States Department of Interior Geological Survey to acquire LADAIR-derived high-resolution elevation data for Davidson County. All in favor? Opposed? Any discussion first? No discussion. Now, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1622, Pridemore, Gilmore, and Lancaster as sponsors, approves an amendment to an annual state grant of $512,400 to the Metro Board of Health for implementation of the state immunization program. And duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1623, Pridemore and Gilmore sponsor, approves an agreement between the Metro Board of Health and the State Department of Human Services to pay the Health Department for voluntary paternity acknowledgments. Been motion made and duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1624, Pridemore and Gilmore sponsor, approves an annual grant of $915,194 from the Greater Nashville Regional Council to the Metro Social Services Commission for congregate meal sites and meal delivery services and transportation for eligible and disabled residents. Motion made and duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-1625, Pridemore, Gilmore, and Lancaster as sponsors, approves a grant of $37,000 from the Greater Nashville Regional Council to the Metro Social Services Commission for home meal delivery service to eligible senior citizens. Motion is made and duly seconded. Councilman Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since I think this is our last bill, and I suspect adjournment will be quick, I just wanted to say thank you on a job well done as our chair for this past year.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. I just want to thank all of you all for all that the attendance and also the interest being made in all the city matters that we had to address, and I appreciate all the discussion. And with that, I'll make a motion for approval. I mean, it's been made, duly seconded. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay. Opposed? Motion passes, and that concludes the Budget and Finance Committee meeting.